Welcome everyone, my name is Tiffany, I'm the Tipsy Artist. Today we're going to be painting a very peaceful and lovely love forest. So we have an awesome painting kit that goes with this. It has all the supplies needed to go ahead and paint this. So I've got my visual here nearby, and then we're all set up to go with all of our supplies. We've got our brushes, napkins, paint, and the only thing you need to get from your house is just some water and a bucket to put that in, but everything else is included in your kit here. So let's go ahead and talk about our traceable here first. So we've got our canvas. We need to make sure and adhere our transfer paper to the canvas. I tape that down first. I basically just center it, and then there is a little bit of excess there on the end, but I just feel like it's easier just to place it right near the edge. Tape right up here at the top. So I'll place this down here first, and again, just centering it works just fine. And then I go ahead and place the traceable on top, and again, just 2 little pieces of tape here, and there is a little bit of overage. Let me give you a visual on that. So it's about 1 inch of overage up at the top. There's some excess there, and then again, just centered on the canvas. But what I really like to make sure is that the hearts, this will line up at the end of the canvas. So you do get all of this design work on the canvas, and then this gets really close to the top there. So we're all good, we're all set. And then once this is in position, then of course there's a pencil with your kit. You'll just basically, see if I've got one nearby, here we go. So basically what you'll do is you'll just trace right over the top of the line. And I did do a lot of extra shading. It's really not that necessary to do all of this extra work, but if you want to, if that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable, you certainly can. So I just went ahead and stayed around the basic line art and kept that in place. And now I'm going to go ahead and lift this off. And then we can go ahead and start painting. All right, so with this particular painting, we also, I'm going to tell you too, we've got a permanent marker that comes with the kit. With this one, we have so much softness that comes in around here. I don't actually use that a lot with this one. So, but if you would like to, of course, you certainly can, or you can use that Sharpie to make some of this black line work that comes in afterwards, but you may just want to use it for a different project. It's probably just an extra piece you probably won't use on this one. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start with our background first. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my Mama brush. This is the biggest brush that we've got. And I'm going to go ahead and just put this into the water here to start with. Kind of lightly tap on the napkin there. I'm going to go ahead and pick up a nice big dollop of this paint here. By the way, this is titanium white. I did go ahead and put out some titanium white and some Mars black early. I did a little extra early step on that. So I've got that I'm going to go ahead and start with, and then I'm also going to begin with a little bit of the Viridian. So here's our Viridian. We'll do a little touch of this. Dollop, a pea size amount there. And let's also get just a little bit of some primary cyan blue. And then just for fun, let's grab some. There's lots of different colors happening in here. And it's nice to be able to have a lot to kind of dip into and play with. So this is our primary magenta that I just put another little pea size amount on. And then also our violet. So I'm going to do a pea size amount there. Right, that's a nice step so far. All right, we're going to go ahead and pick up a nice big dollop of the white. And then the Viridian. And Pardon me for just 1 second. I got a text. Okay. I want to make sure there's not a child in need of something. Okay. All right, we're all good. So I've got just a little touch of the Viridian with the titanium white. So I just kind of barely touched into that just a little bit. So it's mostly white with just a little tiny touch of that Viridian. I kind of push that back and forth. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of lightly press this on, back and forth. It looks like you make like the letter X, just back and forth. I'm also going to come back in with a little bit more white, get a little bit of texture in there. And I'm going to do a little bit of a light overlap over the ends of the trees here. And again, just kind of keep crisscrossing back and forth. Add a little bit of water to this too. And you can see that my transfer is showing through a little bit, and that's actually a desired effect. That's a good thing. That lets us know where our trees still are. This gives you some confidence. Again, a little bit more water. Touch into that white with that little touch of Viridian, and just crisscross that back and forth. I'm going to work in a little of the sky here. Alright, so now we can start to play a little bit more with some different colors. And the paint is still a little bit wet, so I'm going to touch into just a little bit of that primary cyan blue. And it has a nice pretty blend with this mint green so far, so I don't have to worry about washing out the brush. I'm going to work this into the corner in here. And again, just those little crisscrosses with the letter X, just back and forth. And this painting will definitely not be the same every time. So every time we paint it, it becomes a little bit different. That's just a really playful part of the process. Now, in order to feather out these strokes a little bit more and not see any definite, line work here, I'm going to turn this handle a little bit more over to the side. That gives me a light, gentle hand and helps me feather out those strokes. And a little bit more over here. I'll darken that up a little bit. And I'll tell you what else is fun, is just a little bit of that pure Viridian in there over here too. See how that's quite a bit darker, a little bit more dramatic. I'm going to place that into the corner. And just continue to feather that out a little bit. Let's touch into a little bit of that primary yellow here. We're going to add a little bit of light. Spruce out a little bit because I actually want more of a creamy tone that comes in to lighten up the sky. And if I have too much of that existing color in the brush, it will just kind of go green on me. And I'll go ahead and pick up more white. A little touch of that primary yellow. With a nice pale yellow here. Add a little bit more white. And then more water. Just coming in between these two little trees here. turn that handle more over to the side and just continue kind of feathering out those little brush strokes. They become a little bit softer, less intense as it goes up. A little bit lighter in here in between the trees. And then as I go up, lighten up that touch a little bit and continue to kind of feather it back out. Right hand, think parallel to the canvas. That handle's going to be going out to the side, not towards you, out to the side. That's the big trick there. Helps alleviate a lot of that pressure. Light, gentle hand. Right, so that's looking very pretty. I'm going to go ahead and rinse out again. We're going to add a little bit of an intensity here with some of those pinks and violets. But I'm going to totally clean out my brush, so we do some spinning round and round and round. A little bit of firm pressure. And dab out a little bit. All right, now let's get just a little bit of water, some of that primary magenta. And let's go ahead and push that into the corner up here. Light, gentle hand, just back and forth. All right, now just a little touch of that violet. Push that in, back and forth here. It's looking really pretty. Let's go ahead and rinse out again. All right, I'm going to go ahead and establish this trunk down here. I need to get some more of the Viridian. Take a dollop of that. And let's go ahead and give a little bit of water, clean brush, mama brush, and a bit more of that Viridian. Just a little touch, teeny touch. It was actually too much. Do a little touch of the black in here. And let's go ahead and go over those lines. And follow that. Just kind of lift off with the right hand when you're done with the line. Just grab a tiny bit more black here. I'm going to place this on this side. And we've got quite a bit of shadow in here, so I'm just going to push down with a bit more black on the side of the brush. I've got my jacket on. You can't see this, but I am getting really hot in here. So let me take this off. That's better. Okay. Alright, so we've got a little bit of this really dark shadow in here, a little bit of blue in that shadow. So I'm just going to push that into this space here and tap it out. It works its way out to the end and just do tiny little taps here. Grab a little bit more blue. And with these lines, still want to make sure we get a nice thin line here on the end of the brush. So I'm going to do some firm pressure back and forth as I push down. And that way the end of the brush is nice and thin and tapered. And I'm going to make some of these little lines come down here. Just follow that. And just touch into a little bit of that primary cyan blue. Working a little bit more of that up here at the top. And don't worry about going too far up here. We're going to be doing a lot of tapping with all our foliage that comes in over the top here. So you can just, this is more of like a base work that we'll do underneath. Got a little bit of white. I'll soften that into this section here. It kind of grabs all those colors. It lightens up out in the front of the tree. A touch of yellow. Go back to the white and the Viridian. So in between those dark lines, we're pushing in a little bit more of the lighter colors, which would be a mix of our white and our Viridian. And of course, some of those other colors are getting picked up too. Some of the black is mixing in and making a little bit of the gray happen. That's okay. A little bit more Viridian with the white. I'm going to go back into a little bit more black. I'm going to press firmly so that the brush is nice and thin at the end. And while the paint is still wet, I'm going to come back over that, a little bit more of that black, so I get a nice bit of soft blend between the wet paint there. I'm just going to reinforce those lines out in the front. And I'm going to tap out some of this black up here. All right, I'm going to come in with a little bit more of the Viridian and the primary Cyan blue. And I'm going to push this in over the top here, these lines. And a little bit of this black line work over the front one more time. A bit of a soft curve and then lift off with a light hand as you get towards the base here. Right, I'm going to grab a little bit of this yellow, and then I want to mix some brown up too, so that I've got that in the mix. So I'm going to take some Cadmium Orange, a little dollop of that over there. And then we mix brown by mixing the black and the orange. That's how we make brown. So it's very dark. It's more like a dark chocolate brown at this level, but you can make it quite a bit lighter by adding a little bit of white to it. So that's that softer brown that we can use to mix in with here. So I can use that to mix in with this really pretty yellow too. A little bit of both of those, and we're going to feel a nice little wash of this here in the ground line. Go up the side here. I'm going to continue on with that light brown. This is our brown orange, Mars black. Mix those two together. And then just a touch of white to lighten it up a little bit. And then we're going to go ahead and just kind of crisscross that brown out here into the base of the ground on this side. That's going to be our first color that we'll place down here. Kind of roughly going around those hearts. You don't have to worry about too much perfection there. Because we'll go over those hearts at the very end as well. This is still that little bit of brown, just kind of working that into the base here, light hand. pulling that up from the base and just pulling up, looking off with the right hand over the top of that teal there. All right, now I'm going to touch into some more primary cyan blue here. I'm just going to do a little bit of some tapping over the top of that brown. Lots of fun layers to work in here over the top. So I'm going to start with that really pretty blue. Just a light tap of that here over the top. Tap, 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 little lines that come in. Lots of fun texture here on this one. And then I'm going to work in a little bit more of that blue texture by the brush. Light tapping. So I've made a little thin line of the primary cyan blue. And tapping here, working that texture. More texture with that primary cyan blue, just kind of lightly tapping it in. And let's get a little bit heavier with it now in this little section here. It's a big section of the blue in here. And got some Viridian in here too, so we'll kind of tap that into that blue. Also going to do a little bit of a Viridian. Well, I've got it on my brush. I'm going to do a little bit more tapping over here because we have that as another layer. Randomly kind of all over here in the base. It's going to get really fun when we start to work in some of the brights. Let's rinse out. Dry off. Switch over to my little buddy brush here, and I'm going to start dabbing into some of this primary magenta. Little taps all over. Just in a pure form. Let's go ahead and get a little bit more of that. Lots of light little taps there. With little lovely flowers on the forest floor. Quite a bit heavier up and through here. We're just going to go ahead and get a nice concentration of it all over the surface area. Grab a little bit of white, tap into that, and soften it up a little bit. A lot of white with that primary magenta, and just keep tapping on the side. More white. So I'm trying to tap a little bit more on the corner here when I have to do some more, like almost like little delicate pink flowers that are kind of going off into the sky. With the primary magenta and the white, I use more of the teeny tiny little corner there, and I'll just kind of tap out a few little dots of that. They're kind of floating off into the sky. So they either represent like little flowers that are coming off of a shape, or the wind blowing a few of them off into the distance. Okay, I'm just working this part here. A lot of pink and what's happening. I'll touch a yellow too. Kind of fun. A lot more white as we kind of start to softly blend into this lighter section here. and pink, that primary magenta. A little touch of another little heart here with the primary magenta. We'll tap that out, and let's go ahead and do this little guy. Using Little Buddy. And give a little bit of light taps here in the ground. Got a little bit more white with the primary magenta this time. I'll just tap out a bit of pink over here too. There's just a little touch of that pure cadmium orange, and I'm going to do a little bit of that here too. Get a little bit of that coral as it blends in to the primary magenta and the white. That orange will touch into that. Bring a nice coral quality to it. Touch a little bit more of that primary yellow in there. Still kind of tapping that into the floor, forest floor. And start to grab some Cadmium Red. Do a little dollop here. I'll start to work this into my parts. So got my Cadmium Red here, a touch of that primary yellow with that. And a loose little tap into that heart. A little bit of red, a little bit of primary magenta, and a little bit of white in this little heart here. More primary magenta on this one, a little bit more white. It's very fun and playful. Alright, so let's see here. We're going to start to work on our trees a little bit. And kind of rinse out and do a little bit of the main framework that comes up through the center. Let's use our little bit brush. And we're going to do a little twirl into the black. Nice fine point there. And then our little top of our tree comes about right there. We're going to go ahead and just kind of pull it down to the center. And just do a little touch off to the sides here. A little slight diagonal. And same thing here, got a little line that comes up, comes down to the tree there. And a little touch off to the sides, down to a little diagonal. And then here. here. So we kind of know where all of our little trees are going to come into play. And I'm going to start to change up a little bit of the coloring here. So I'm going to come into some of our violets here. So there's our violet. Still using a little bit. Our little branches. A little touch with the brush. Let the brush do a lot of the work here for you. So the little touches at a diagonal. This gives just a nice little foundation. We're going to be adding a lot more color to this, but nice framework, nice starting point. Create some nice depth with this dark violet being the base. And now I'm just being a little bit playful with that violet, placing it into a few little areas. Great, bring it out now. And then we're going to start to tap out some of the lighter shades of this main tree here. I'll go ahead and grab some more Cadmium Red. Little buddy brush. And I'm going to start to just tap, tap, tap on the side here. If you get closer to the trunk, then I start to minimize the little taps, making them a little tinier, not so dense. As it gets up towards the top, it becomes a little bit more thick and dense. So I allow a lot more layering to impact this tree here in this little section. start to kind of sprinkle. This was that dark black area that we had initially. So I just kind of layer just a little bit of light. Put more of this Cadmium Magenta, kind of work that back in as well. Tap, tap, tap that out. And if it gets to be a little bit too bright, you can always come back in, like I'm doing now, with a little more of that violet. Kind of tap that in to add a little bit more shadow. Then got a lot more of that violet. Pretty big dollop of that. We're going to add a nice bit of texture here over the top of that black with more violet. Almost appears to be black, but it is in fact a violet color over the top. Let's rinse out. We're going to lighten back up again, so I'm going to rinse out, dry off here. Grab more of this Cadmium Red. Right, now we have a little sprinkle of green in here. It's kind of a bright green too, so I'm going to go ahead and use my bright yellow green. And my Cadmium Green. Still using a little buddy, then I'll come in with that bright yellow green, Cadmium Green. And since we have that green in our hand, then we're going to go ahead and have a little fun with it and put it into a few more little areas here. If it gets a little bit too muddy, sometimes it's nice to have it, you know, what it will do is as it taps around different colors, it will sometimes pick up those residual colors. Sometimes it's kind of nice. Sometimes it gets a little bit too muddy and you have to make a decision to wash out your brush and start fresh with fresh green. But a little bit of that can be nice, a little bit of that mix. See, that purple is already kind of mixing in with it a bit. So. Now we're starting to make the little trees, and they all have a slight triangular shape to them. So as you start to do your little tapping, you're coming up to a point, but then you're giving a little bit more width as you come down. So it's very slight and gradual. Just tapping over that violet, and that violet's just really kind of becoming more of a shadow. A little hint of that over here. And just kind of think of it as a little bit like that triangular shape. Lots of very therapeutic tapping. Again, there's that triangular shape again. Just kind of tap it out to the top. And the little taps give a nice little texture to help make the ends of the trees look a little bit more gradual as they kind of flow out to the side there. Now this tree, I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that Viridian. And the white with the Viridian is also kind of nice there. And a little bit of that primary blue in here too, just to give it the weight it needs with the dark shadow underneath. Okay, very pretty. Let's go ahead and rinse out. Okay, now we're going to pick up more of that primary magenta. This pretty little tree's got a lot more of that pink action. So again, think about your little triangular shape. Go up to a point, and then we're going to kind of tap to a slight downward, like diagonal angle to each little side here. It reinforces that triangle shape a little bit. Okay, let's do a little bit of orange in there too. Brighten it up. A touch of primary yellow. Alright, so we're getting some really pretty little trees in here. And let's see. Let's do a little bit more of that primary magenta up in here. A little bit of yellow. Want more of that primer magenta now. I'm going to work that in over the top. That's a texture. I'm going to grab a little bit more of that violet in here. A little bit more of this Viridian and the white. I'm going to try to sweep some of that back in. And then a little bit more black. I picked up black. I've got a little bit more black. I'm just kind of tapping that in off to the side here for that little shadow. Lifting that down. Side of the brush, kind of softly grazing over the top. And I'm going to add a little bit more of that primary blue. I'll tap on the primary blue over the top here. It just gives a little bit of dark texture into the shadows. I'm going to do some of those shadows just a little bit off to the side here. More of that primary magenta. I'm pretty heavy-handed with that. And then I'm going to go back with my little bit brush here, get a little bit of water into the Viridian and the primary cyan blue. And I'm just going to kind of curl the brush a little bit. A little bit of water. Again, it's our Viridian, primary cyan blue, a little bit of water, kind of twirl it into the paint and then twirl it out, kind of rotate it down. Get thin little lines. And like twirls here. A few with the yellow as well. Just tiny little lines. And do some with the brown. So I have just a few. Teeny tiny lines. These look like little spider veins coming through there. And looking at a little bit of black. Kind of reinforcing this up from the shadows and then down into the trunk. Just tiny little lines in here. And we're going to push in a little bit. We still have a lot of violet out, so I'm going to go ahead and put that into the works too. Alright, so it is a little bit different than what we have initially, because as I mentioned before, every time you do this painting, it does turn out to be a little bit different. But you do have to get to a point where you say, yeah, I'm happy with the new creative look that I have. And you could just literally play on this for hours. I mean, this painting could take a while, or you could just kind of walk away from it. I just now decided to add a little bit of primary yellow here to this cute little heart. And soften it up a little bit, give it a little highlight. But you can keep playing, or you can just say, you know what, I think I'll just call it done. I think I think if I want to do any other, you know what, let me teach one other little fun technique here. You could do a little bit of some, like a grassy feel here at the base. So I did a lot of textural, where it looks like there's grass here at the bottom with just pouncing texture, like tap, tap, tap. But you could also do tiny little elements here of what looks like little bits of grass. I'm doing a remix on the brown, which is orange, black, mixed brown, and then a little bit of white. And let's add a little bit of yellow to that. Make it like a khaki color. And then you can just do, like, just kind of pull up a little bit of water, then twirl into the paint. And then you can kind of pull up little strands of grass too. That's also kind of fun in there. And then I just went back in with a little bit of the darker brown too. Kind of pull up tiny little strands of grass with that with the right hand. Do that with some of this Viridian in here too. That's kind of pretty, I like that. Also do it with some of this primary cyan blue. I already got a lot of this paint out, so I might as well use it. There's a little bit of that violet. It's going to do some little bits of that grassy look with that violet. Yeah. Just grabbed a little bit of that bright green. And some little bits of grass up in there too. And little bits of yellow. Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. Looking so good. Alright. So this is lovely. This is our little love forest. Looks awesome. And again, the more I look at it, the more I think, oh, I could add a little bit more there and there. Or you can just kind of call it quits too. I'm having a hard time quitting. so pretty and therapeutic to keep working on it. Alright. Now I will say that when you go to sign it, I've got a lot of wet paint happening here, so I can wait on this. But if you've got your permanent marker, you can use, it's very nice and easy to sign with your permanent marker, but do not do it on wet paint or it'll just ruin your Sharpie immediately. So you're gonna hold up on that. Or you can do this old school and you can do a little twirl with a little bit into the white paint and you can just sign with your little bit brush here too. Very gentle hand. And there it is. All right, it is beautiful. That is our love forest. We love it. We love our love forest. All right, well, thank y'all so much for painting with me today. And again, all the supplies that you need for this project are on our website at tipsyartist.com. It's been a true pleasure. And if you have any questions, please let me know. You can also email us on our website at tipsyartist.com. But we had so much fun with y'all today, and y'all have a beautiful rest of the day and a week, and we will talk to you soon and see you soon. Love y'all. Toodles.